March 22nd, 2024. This is Political Dharma, and I am Alan Zundell. I did have surgery on the thumb of my right hand this week, so this will be a short video as I'm still trying to get the hang of working with just my left hand. I have a few updates on stories that I've been covering, such as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his vice presidential running mate, and Jill Stein's struggles with the Federal Elections Commissions, and a couple things. That'll be pretty brief. Then I'll talk a little bit about why I'm covering Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But please bear with me because I'm trying to figure out how to use this program in a different way using just my left hand, and it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me. But if we can get through this, it should be smoother in future episodes. It's going to take me a while to heal this, so please bear with me. So let's transition right now to a different, to our first topic, and that is the running mate for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, a week ago in last week's show, I was discussing a New York Times article which was saying that inside sources had said that Jesse Ventura, the former Minnesota governor and professional wrestler, and Aaron Rodgers, a New York Jets quarterback, were at the top of the list for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s possible vice presidential running mates. And then within a few hours of my uploading of that podcast, I saw that there's a new article, this one on Mediaite, on the website Mediaite, saying that Kennedy is expected to tap Nicole Shanahan as his running mate. Now, who is Nicole Shanahan? She is a former wife of one of the co-founders of Google, so she has a lot of money. She's a lawyer. She's been involved in environmental causes, and she also helped to develop and then to pay for that Kennedy Super Bowl ad that we saw a couple of weeks ago on this show. So she's been actively involved in promoting Kennedy's campaign with her money. I think she put in $6 million to get that ad in the Super Bowl. And Mediaite was basing this report simply on a website that said KennedyShanahan.com, and then they found a link to a donation button, and that seemed to lead them to the person who was responsible for the website donation, I forget which one, was a senior advisor to Kennedy, supposedly. So they're speculating based on this that Shanahan is going to be his vice presidential running pick, but Kennedy's still planning to make that announcement this coming Tuesday. So I'm not going to speculate, and I'm not going to say whether I think it's Shanahan or not. I really don't know any more than anyone else does. It is often typical for a campaign to float various supposed vice presidential running mates in the media to see what kind of feedback they get, and then they can say, oh, no, the media got that wrong. We're actually going to pick this one. Kennedy did put out a short video, which I don't have to show you right now. It's a little complex for me to edit a video with my hand in this condition. But essentially, he didn't say a lot. He said the media didn't get all the details right about who he was going to pick, but he will be announcing this. And this is a person, everybody is going to shake up the whole race. So he's really building this up. So Tuesday, 10 o'clock, I think, Pacific time in Oakland, California. I assume it's going to be live streamed in some form, maybe on his YouTube channel. I'm going to be trying to watch, see what it's going to be, and then I'll have something to say about it next week. But so far, we really don't know anything for sure. Also, there was a story about a month ago, I think, that I had in which I said that Jill Stein had brought her case involving the Federal Elections Commission demanding payback from her for matching funds to her campaign back in 2016, and she had appealed that to the Supreme Court. Now, we find out that the Supreme Court last week, I think it was around Friday, so about a week ago, turned down Stein's appeal and simply is not going to hear it. So that means that Jill Stein is going to be on the hook for about $175,000. Now, I know from my own experience that when you're running as a candidate, it's hard to keep track of everything. And so I assume she had other people dealing with her campaign finance issues. and she simply was not paying that close of attention, but she is going to be the person responsible. She's ultimately responsible for making sure everything happens legally and filings are on time. What was this case about? The central issue, as I explained before, was that a candidate, after they qualify for matching funds by getting on the ballot in a certain number of states, or no, getting donations in a certain number of states from a certain number of small donors, they can qualify for matching funds, and they put into the Federal Elections Commission in order to get on the general election ballot. So for major party candidates, they can get matching funds for money they spend trying to run in the primaries. But once the major party has its convention and picks its nominee, they're obviously not eligible any longer. For a minor party candidate, the usual practice, and Jill Stein says in 2012, this is how they operated, and it was fine with the Federal Elections Commission, is that once she obtained the Green Party nomination, which was the party she belongs to, she continued to seek the nomination in California of the Peace and Freedom Party. That's a small party that only exists in California, and so she got matching funds to continue her candidacy to try to become the candidate of that party as well. And all that was regarded as the equivalent of the primary race for a major party candidate. But this time around in 2016, the FEC changed the rules, and either she didn't know about it or somebody dropped the ball in her campaign, but they continued to apply for funds after she received the Green Party nomination. But this time they said, once you got the nomination of a party, your primary race or the equivalent of a primary race is over, so you're no longer eligible for matching funds. And the case got, I tried to look at it today. I looked at the audit that the Federal Elections Commission did of that campaign financing, and it gets pretty complicated because it's not only about that, it's also about whether they had debt from their primary campaign, and if there was still debt at the time she was getting the matching funds. She could have used matching funds to pay for the debt before, but there was a dispute about how much cash she actually had, whether she was in debt or not, because they had received a lot of credit card donations that were not yet transferred to her bank account. So a lot of ins and outs to this, but the long and short of it is the FEC disallowed her matching funds, and now she has to repay them $175,000. So if you would like to help her to pay for that and make some small donation, she does have a website, jillstein.net, not the .com, because that's where her current campaign is, but jillstein.net. You'll find a donation button. Sorry, I was looking at my little monitor instead of looking at the camera. A donation button that will go to Jill Stein 2016. They didn't even tell her she owed this money until October of 2021. So, of course, that campaign fund doesn't have much money in it. And so she's got to pay that off. She could probably use some help. I'm not sure. Haven't heard any word from the Stein campaign about what they're going to do about this big bill and how she's going to pay it. But I assume they could use some help there. All right, so aside from that, we just had the Libertarian Party got on the ballot in another state in North Dakota, and the No Labels Party got on a ballot in Tennessee, or maybe it was vice versa. I don't remember now because I'm trying to manage all these things at the same time, using my left hand. I'm getting a little confused. But anyway, so No Labels and Libertarian Party each got one more ballot access in the state. That's really all the news I got for you today. Wasn't a lot happening that I could see, and it was hard for me to try to dig through things using my left hand to go across the internet and to find videos or something going on. I'll try to do more for next week to see how that goes. But for today, I just want to say this briefly because people have mentioned in the comments on some of my videos they appreciate me being unbiased or something like that. Well, of course, I have opinions. I'm covering Kennedy for a reason, right? I'm not intending it as a promotion of him, although I realize that by covering him, it is promoting his candidacy. And since the mainstream media up to recently hasn't been covering it very well, I thought it could use some coverage. My main concern here is to show how our supposed democratic system, especially in the case of the presidency, but it's true of other races as well, is not as democratic as it's touted to be. I guess I never transitioned away from that Jill Stein thing. Let's get rid of that little piece. So I am trying to cover the alternative presidential candidates mostly to show how our electoral system makes things difficult for them to compete on an even footing with the major party candidates, even assuming that they could have the kind of money that the major party candidates have, because they have to get on the ballot in the states, and all the states have different rules for doing that. The major parties are pretty much guaranteed a spot on the general election ballot. Minor party and independent candidates are not. They have to go through a lot of hoops in order to get on the ballot in the various states. It takes up a lot of their time and effort. They have to comply with FEC rules, which can cause hassles for them like this. And so that's what I'm trying to demonstrate primarily. But now, I started out covering the presidential race when Cornel West switched over. I think when he first announced he was going to be an independent candidate, I had a little segment on that. But when he switched to the Green Party, I thought, well, that's worth covering, because he's a fairly well-known left-wing candidate, and if he can get the Green Party nomination, he'll be more visible than most candidates, maybe even more so than Jill Stein. And this could be interesting because he could present a challenge to the two parties and get some attention. But when he switched to being an independent, my sense was, okay, he doesn't have the resources to really get on the ballot as an independent, and he's going to have a hard time doing that. But at the same time, Kennedy went from running for the Democratic nomination in the Democratic primaries, or planning to do that, and he said he felt the process wasn't fair and he wasn't getting equal treatment by the party, so he declared his candidacy as an independent. I think this was back in October of last year. When he did that, and I covered that, I listened to his speech, and it was a pretty impressive speech. He was talking about things I think need to be spoken about, particularly the capture of the two parties by corporate interest and how that is used to shape government decisions throughout the executive bureaucracy. For example, pharmaceutical companies can dominate decisions by the Food and Drug Administration, including things about testing drugs or whatever the decisions they're making. So I thought that's an important thing to cover, and the problems with the two-party system in general. Now, my concerns are that I don't think either of the major party candidates is going to take this country to a place where it's solving the problems I think need to be solved, which would be primarily, I think, our economic system is not functioning well. I don't think I'm a very left-wing person. If you don't know, if you haven't watched any of my old videos, I think there's problems with capitalism, and I like to see a form of economic democracy, but there's not very many presidential candidates who want what I want. They're going to go in that way. So at least a progressive candidate would be, I think, a step forward. But Donald Trump obviously is not that. Joe Biden not going very far in that direction. I think we're going to have economic problems coming forward that'll be similar to those we've had, such as the 2008 crash. Also climate change, which is also due to companies pursuing profits and capturing control of politicians. Joe Biden's not going far enough on that. You keep hearing how he's gone farther than any other president, but that isn't good enough. So I want to see more dramatic leadership in areas of dealing with the kind of economic inequality that keeps growing. Make sure ordinary people are able to manage their lives without being sucked dry by the cost of interest rates, rentals, drugs, hospital stays, education debt, interest on credit cards. Half the country is really struggling financially. The other half of the country is doing okay. And a small segment of ultra billionaires is doing very, very well and getting richer and richer. I think that needs to be addressed. I think Kennedy at least is going to shake up the system, and he has the resources to do that. So I'm following his campaign to see how far he can get in getting on the ballots. Now, if he can get on the ballot in a lot of states, or even all the states, hopefully, then he will present a major challenge to the two-party system. Of course, at this point, I don't know about all of his positions on the issues, don't agree with him about everything, but I do agree with him about a lot of things. And when he's accused of conspiracy theories, and they name some of those, I think, well, that one I agree with anyway, like his uncle, John Kennedy. I think the CIA was involved in an assassination. Now, you can think that's a conspiracy theory, but if so, I don't think you've been paying a lot of attention. I would ask you to read, for example, the book about Allen Dulles, the head of the CIA that was fired by John Kennedy, called The Devil's Chessboard. Also have doubts about whether Sirhan was the sole person involved in killing his father, Robert F. Kennedy Robert F. Kennedy Sr. All right, I'm starting to ramble. So let me try to summarize what I'm trying to say here, which is that I'm covering Kennedy's campaign because, number one, I want to demonstrate that the electoral system is not giving a fair shake to alternative party candidates. Number two, because I think Kennedy has a very good chance of shaking up the system and perhaps producing something good out of that. I can talk about that more in future shows, talked about it a little in previous shows. And number three, I am leaning towards Kennedy. And so I don't mind if these videos are promoting his candidacy, because I think he has a lot to offer. If there are areas that I disagree with his views, even if he has views that are way outside the mainstream and I think they're wrong, Joe Biden and Donald Trump have even more views that I think maybe somewhere within the mainstream, but are very, very wrong. That's my opinion. So I'm leaning towards Kennedy as a candidate. I'm not going to decide who to vote for until it comes nearer to November and I know who's actually going to be on the ballot in my state where I'm going to vote, and how well those candidates are doing and getting on the ballots in other places, so that I'm not just throwing my vote away. Not just going to vote for a candidate based on how well they match my views. I want someone who's going to disrupt the system for the good. That's a gamble, but it's one that I think we should be taking because things are very serious right now. All right, I hope that wasn't too rambling. Again, excuse me because I'm a little distracted by the fact that I'm doing this differently. My hand still hurts, and I'm dealing with my left hand, doing everything with my left hand. That should be it for this week. I'm going to sign off now. Thanks for watching. Please come again. If you like the video, please hit the like button. It wasn't my best video. If you want to subscribe so you can see this as I start to improve and go back to doing better videos, you can subscribe, hit the notification thing. I'm appearing on Rumble, YouTube, and in audio form on various podcast platforms. And if you'd like to help financially support this show, you can find a secure PayPal link at the end of the program description. Again, thank you very much. That's all for now. Day early because my wife had to help me set this up, and she's going to go to work tomorrow. I can't do it all by myself. We all need each other, don't we? We all need a little help. Thanks. Okay, goodbye.
With ease, I see the chains are breaking. We gained our focus, the moves we're making will prove to determine our self-worth as a passenger on this vehicle Earth.